This has to stop. The Toronto Raptors just faced one of the best teams, if not the best team, in the NBA in the Oklahoma City Thunder after a really emotional past couple of weeks of trades going down. The trade deadline still coming around the corner, so half of this roster probably thinks they're going to get dealt in the coming days. And despite that, despite an embarrassing loss to the Houston Rockets just a couple days ago, they faced a red-hot Oklahoma City Thunder team and came out and took that game to double overtime. Few guys returning from injuries. It was an all-around really strong performance from the Oklahoma City Thunder. And the one thing, the real major takeaway people have been taking from this game has been to trash on Scottie Barnes. And yes, it is fine. Scottie Barnes, particularly at the end of last night's game, deserves a significant amount of criticism. He looked a little bit disengaged. He wasn't taking a lot of shots. He airballed that one shot in OT and then really didn't do much else. And the expectations after trading away Pascal Siakam, after trading away OG Anunoby, they're all on Scottie Barnes right now. And maybe it's not to necessarily win because, again, a lot of people are calling for that Toronto Raptors tank. That's right. We have a new graphic for it this year. It's back. People are calling for that Raptors tank in 2024. So people aren't necessarily looking to win, but they're looking for Scottie Barnes to be able to close out games like this. And tonight, he looked a bit disengaged down the stretch of this one, and I completely get it. I completely get people being frustrated in their immediate reactions, sort of discussing that sort of loss and saying, hey, Scottie Barnes needs to improve in these areas, needs to do this, needs to do that, and we can talk about all the things that needs to be improved upon for Scottie Barnes' game. Again, I'm not one of those sort of delusional people that think Scottie Barnes is immediately, gonna, now that Pascal is gone, OG Anunoby's gone, is gonna be a top 2 NBA player or something along those lines. That's not the case, right? Scottie Barnes is young, he's developing, and he hasn't really had the chance to be the top guy on a particular team, and we know how close he was, particularly to OG Anunoby. We know how emotional he is in terms of being invested in games, and, he's still a young guy, probably is riding the highs and lows of a season and stuff, and the Raptors are certainly at a low point. They just traded away one of his closest friends in OG Anunoby, and obviously Pascal Siakam was probably a mentor there in the locker room. One of the vets that we know didn't seem to have a big rift with the younger guys last season when all that stuff was going on. So Scottie Barnes, again, he should be playing better if he's going to be the top guy, if we had playoff expectations, if we had all these things this year. But as Masai Ujiri said, we need patience with this group. The Toronto Raptors fan base, we need to be able to look at this and take away the positives. And yes, Scottie Barnes has to be more engaged. He has to be more locked in. There's down the stretch of games, he has to be able to sort of take on the load of the defense and not just become a passive player out there, right? For all the flax Pascal Siakam sort of received for his late game play, especially as he sort of, emerged as the number one option after that Tampa year, all that type of stuff. Scottie Barnes, the Pascal Siakam developed that sort of knack to be able to score down the stretch of games. Was he perfect at it? No, but he definitely improved in those areas to the point where fans that were calling for his head because he was missing so many clutch shots, right, that sort of got silenced. No one ever called him a super clutch player, but he became pretty fine down the stretch for this Toronto Raptors team. No one's going to call him Kawhi or anything like that, but he became solid because he had some room to grow, to develop, to mold into that number one option. No, it didn't lead to a championship for the Toronto Raptors. It didn't lead to, All NBA first team appearance or Pascal Siakam or anything like that, but he did get better. And Scottie Barnes is a heck of a lot younger. He's a lot more raw coming into this specific role. And we've seen him over the course of this season show up big during the fourth quarters, during clutch moments for the team. Now, the defense is fully locked in on Scottie Barnes right now, right? There's no sort of, hey, let's focus on a Pascal. As much as people are going to roast, let's focus on a Fred VanVleet who did take a lot of shots down the stretch. The eyes are locked in on Scottie Barnes right now. And yes, RJ Barrett, he's looking like a proper scorer for this team that's also developing himself, that's expanding his game, that's coming back from injury and all that type of stuff. But Scottie Barnes has clearly been handed the reins as the number one guy, and it's going to take some adjustments. It's going to take some shakeups. Siakam talked about this directly, how his game had to change, being the focal point of the defense on the other side, right? No one complained. No one ever trashed on Pascal Siakam when he had Kawhi Leonard sort of there to take the load of the offense away from him. No one ever... He was one of the most liked players across the fan base. And then, obviously, gets thrown into that number one position, and then never really turned on Pascal Siakam, but a lot of the fan base did. And we can't be turning on our young stars like this. We can't be doing, again, a year from now, if we're seeing no development from Scottie Barnes in these areas, in these spaces, sure. But give this man some time. Give him some time to figure out what it means to be the actual leader of a group, because people are saying, oh, he's the emotional leader, he's the heart and soul. He's probably not that just yet. Right, Kyle Lowry was that emotional heart and soul for this team. Pascal Siakam has been that number one sort of guy for this squad in recent years. Fred VanVleet was sort of that last season as well, even though he wasn't our best player by any means. But Scottie Barnes has to learn the ropes, develop into that sort of space. So, in a game against one of the league's best teams, where Scottie still had a good game. I mean, in this one, Scottie Barnes, looking at the stats, 19 points, 7 rebounds, 9 assists, 8 of 15 from the field, 3 of 5 from the three-point line. You take away that fourth, that late stretch of games, right, of this game, Scottie Barnes looks like a phenom out there. That's an exaggeration, but a young rising star. So, again, down the stretch against a really polished team in the Oklahoma City Thunder who, went through their learning curves, hit those bumps in the roads in recent seasons. I mean, I am not worried long-term about Scottie Barnes. There's no sort of stress in my head after this game about, okay, Scottie Barnes isn't the answer. He's trash. We made major mistakes and stuff. Yes, I did agree that we should have kept Pascal Siakam. I've been sort of on that train. I've been saying, hey, we should be sort of in a position to give this guy's max and then maybe trade him later and things like that. But the Toronto Raptors are probably making a push for that draft pick, and fair enough. Is it going to become the level of Pascal Siakam? Probably not. And then you could look at contract situations, amongst other things. So I'm not saying it was the complete wrong decision. I was still in the Pascal Siakam hive. But the fact that we gave the reins to Scottie Barnes, the fact that he hasn't immediately become that sort of superstar player that people have sort of been wanting him to sort of elevate into, night in, night out. There's some nights where he certainly looks like a superstar and things like that. I'm not worried. I am not stressed. I am not complaining whatsoever. Again, fair to criticize, and people giving fair criticism, I'm not saying that has to stop, but the people saying, hey, it's a case of Vince Carter, he looks mentally disengaged, he looks like this, he looks like that, he's gonna leave the Toronto Raptors first chance he gets, demand a trade, and all that type of stuff, that's just crazy. That's frankly crazy talk. So, I don't know. I don't want us to start ostracizing the same way our fan base kind of did with Pascal Siakam, the same way it did with Fred VanVleet. Heck, sometimes it did with DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry in the past. I don't want that to be the case with Scottie Barnes when he's a young team, and we've been told, at least for this season, patience. Let this team develop, let this squad sort of come into its own, and then we'll see how it all shakes out. So, again, a few takeaways from this game. That's the main thing I want to discuss. Poeltl back, looking healthy. 19 points, 12 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 blocks. Frankly, I have been of the take, and again, I'm breaking up this tank animation because it's something that we're cooking up here. A lot of people are calling for it after everything that's gone on. One of my main sort of focal points in discussions and stuff regarding that Pascal Siakam trade is I don't think we're going to be bad enough to proper tank a season with an actual center. I think our opinions of this team have been a bit skewed by Poeltl straight up not being in the lineup and not having a center. So I basically said, unless we're sitting Jakob Poeltl for the rest of the season, I don't think we're going to be that bad. I don't think we're going to tank that bad. Now, the Houston Rockets game switched my mental a little bit. I said, okay, we might be, but that Jakob Poeltl looked like Jakob Poeltl in this game and a little bit better. So, we're doing this to Oklahoma City Thunder. I think we're going to be able to beat a lot of these bad teams in the league with Jakob Poeltl actually in the lineup. Maybe I'm, again, a little bit too optimistic for this Raptors group, or I guess for the tank folks, the, unoptimistic, for a potential bottoming out. So I'm going to be interested to see how the Raptors sort of pursue this trade deadline. Again, Poeltl's a nice piece. We have him locked in for the future. He doesn't make free throws and things like that. He's not much of a lob threat. He doesn't hit threes, but he catches the basketball. He finishes around the basket. He's an extremely strong rim protector in the sense that, he moves his feet well. He protects the basket and things like that. Jakob Poeltl, healthy in this lineup, does have a serious impact on this team. So, again, Jakob Poeltl's back. Keep an eye out for how that story goes because, again, some people want to win, some people want to lose. You don't want to be in the middle of all this sort of madness. So, we'll see how that all shakes out. Off the bench, Thad looked good. Dennis Schroeder, wasn't super efficient, but had himself a night against his former team. Gary Trent Jr. is hitting threes, but still not getting assists. Bruce Brown is also a guy that I feel like is just gone. He's not really engaged. He's a guy that's sort of a role player for this team. We'll see how it all shakes out. Didn't play too many minutes. RJ Barrett back from injury looked great last night. Had a few turnovers, which is what it is, but 23 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists. Loving what I'm seeing from RJ Barrett. Emmanuel quickly hit some late threes, which is great to see. He's been good, after the injury he was dealing with. Those couple games of rest have definitely helped his performances of late. And then, again, we're a young team. That game against the Oklahoma City Thunder is a nice development game. Darko Rajokovic has talked about how the Raptors have had some good practices. He was shocked for how they played against the Houston Rockets. I mean, we'll see. This team is very unpredictable right now, especially with the trade deadline around the corner. I want to know what you guys have to say. Also, Jordan Nwora, no minutes in this one. I'm not sure if he was injured in this game, so that's what it is. But folks, you guys are the best for making this far. Subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. Anyways, I'm signing out. Cheers.